It's a great question, the idea of how do you manage the sort of big disruptive changes that you know are coming and, your existing business, your existing business model. And I think that the kind of small wins approach, I would say, complements both. So what you want is kind of big change done in a series of small steps. But often there's another flip side to that, that if you do a lot of pilot programs and a lot of small experiments, a lot of small steps, sometimes out of those small steps, those small actions, those small initiatives, a big idea emerges. Now, one of the things we do, which is really interesting, is that when something succeeds, we kind of post-rationalise it. It's the way our mind works. We post-rationalise it and say, look, we always knew it was a big idea. The reality is no one had any idea. So what we need to do in these kind of chaotic, uncertain, disruptive times is, which is the other part of the small wins approach, is to try lots of small tests, lots of small experiments. And out of those, a couple of things may really take off. So if you think of Earth Hour, for example, that's another really good example. Earth Hour, 7 years after the launch of it, is a huge worldwide success. It's apparently the largest mass market consumer event throughout the world. Now, Earth Hour started with a couple of guys in Australia just saying, you know what, if we could just get a few people to turn off their lights in Sydney, that'd be really cool. And when I read all the initial case studies, they said, and that was about the extent of our thinking. We just wanted something to put in front of our client and just get a few people to turn off their lights, and we're more than happy. And they'll use language like, we had no idea that it would take off. And what happens is that over time, 7 years later, when it's a huge success, they all go, oh, we always knew it was a big idea. We absolutely knew it was a big idea. And it's not the case. I was once working with the CEO of the big company, packaged goods company, who used to wander around all the time saying to his people, look, I want a big idea. I want a big idea. And I'd say to him, but what does a big idea look like? Have you told your people, do they understand what a big idea is? And he said, yeah. And of course they didn't. I talked to them and they had no idea what a big idea looked like, felt like, smelt like, Whereas I think if he would have said, look, let's think of some small ways to improve the customer experience, or some small ways to improve the product performance, and let's test a whole bunch of them and see which ones of those might take off, I actually think that's a great way to go. So you need the balance of kind of the big thinking with the small steps, but also I think you need a lot of small experiments which sometimes can lead to the big success.